You may be seated in this place this morning. So first of all, I have a secret to tell you. And as you know, for the last 5 months, we've been looking for a pastor. And many people have falsely assumed that the board has been running the church. And that's just not really true. Annika has been running the church.
That is not true.
And we can't thank Annika enough for what she has done for us. For those of you that don't know, Annika is our office administrator here at the church. And she's been with us for just about 2 years now. And what you also may not know about Annika is that she actually has a BA in religious studies, kind of with a focus on intercultural religion. And she did that at Summit, which is on the West Coast in British Columbia. And so she has a heart for that and for the missions field. And so that kind of brought her to us, and she's been with us for the last 2 years. And so we are excited to give her this opportunity to speak. And so please join me in welcoming Annika.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thank you. Hey. This be my first time up on this stage. I'm so excited. Okay, I got my little preaching bag here. Some water, just in case. And I'm gonna need some notes, I think, actually. Hi. Hi. It's nice to see all of you. Yes, my name's Annika, and Matt said everything true about me. He wasn't lying. All those facts were true. And I put up on the slide this morning a nice little picture of my family, and some of them are here today to come see me, and I love them, and they're awesome. Okay, so yeah, one of the reasons why I took the job at the Gathering was because I kind of wanted to see what ministry was like behind the scenes before I kind of like jumped in and was like, I'm all in. So this has been a really great experience for me, and I'm super excited / a little bit nervous to share with you today. Today, I want to start by talking to you about the beautiful game. Okay, so we just finished a week of soccer camp, and also FIFA just finished up a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you guys are soccer fans, but I discovered during FIFA that I'm a soccer fan. Go Netherlands, yeah, okay. And I found myself like scouring the internet, spouting off facts. I knew all this stuff about everything. And during one of my little discoveries was they actually designed the ball this year to be even more aerodynamic and more predictable for the soccer players. And how they did that was by making the grooves in the panels a little bit deeper, and they actually covered the bazooka ball, which is what it's called. That's so cool. With little tiny bumps. And I thought, that is so strange, because you'd think that a perfectly round little ball, oh, come on. Come on. Oh, sorry, guys. I put a ball inside of a ball, and it's just not working. Okay, there we go. A perfectly round ball, you'd think that would fly straight. There's nothing impeding it, right? But actually, even NASA says this, the overall increased roughness of the bazooka football will help decrease the ball's knuckling tendencies. And so what I kind of take from that is you actually need a little bit of imperfection in a soccer ball to make it fly straight. And I don't know about you, but if my country's World Cup's hopes were resting on me, I'd rather be using the soccer ball versus this dinky little perfectly round ball. I'm just gonna leave these down here. So that's what I actually want to talk to you about today. As Matt kind of alluded to, I want to talk about imperfection. And this is actually not an easy subject for somebody who secretly wishes she was perfect. But whether we like to admit it or not, I think it's something we all can relate to. To do this, I want to talk about a character in the Bible named Peter. And we read about Peter's life in the New Testament. And here are some of the things we know about him. So Peter is one of Jesus's closest disciples. Throughout the Gospels, we see Jesus pulling Peter, James, and John's kind of aside, pulling them deeper, giving them more information, letting them in on more of what's going on. So him and Jesus are tight. They're like this. We also know he's outspoken. He's the first to publicly recognize Jesus as the Son of God. Jesus says, "Who do you think I am?" And Peter pipes up and says, "You are Jesus, the Son of God." Often he's also the spokesman for the disciples. So Jesus will be teaching, the disciples are confused, and Peter's the one who will ask a question, or he'll be the one to point something out or to make a statement first. He's also, as Shayla preached about a couple weeks ago, the first one to get out of the boat when Jesus is walking on water. Finally, we know that Peter has a bright future ahead of him. In Matthew 16:18, Jesus says to Peter, "Now I say to you that you are Peter," which means rock, "and upon this rock I will build my church." So Peter knows who he is. He's one of Jesus' closest disciples. He knows what he believes. He believes Jesus is the Son of God. And he knows what's ahead of him. He's got a bright future ahead of him. I don't know about you, but it kind of sounds like he's got it all together. I kind of envy people like that, people who know absolutely who they are, what they believe, and where they want to go in life. But as we'll see, not everything always works out as we expect. We're going to be reading from Mark 14:27-31 to begin. And this little bit of the story takes place near the end of the gospel. After the Last Supper, Jesus has just spelled out to his disciples, "Hey guys, I'm going to die now." And they have their last meal together, and it's kind of a big deal. And so they're on their way from the Last Supper to the Garden of Gethsemane, where they're going to pray together. And this is what kind of happens. It says, "On the way, Jesus told them, 'All of you will desert me, for scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there.' Peter said to him, 'Even if everyone else deserts you, I never will.'" Wow, that's quite the statement, I think. He's kind of looking around at the guys beside him and saying, "You know what? I think I could do better than these guys. Even if everybody else pieces out, I'm good. I got your back, Jesus." Okay, so Jesus replies, "I tell you the truth, Peter, this very night before the rooster crows twice, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." "No," Peter declared emphatically, "even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." And all the others vowed the same. So I kind of got 2 things to point out here. Peter is pretty confident in himself, and I don't know about you, but I think there's areas in all of our lives where we feel like, "I got this." Maybe it's at work. You're doing a really great job, and you're like, "I'm rocking it." Or relationships, or in your spirituality. Maybe it's even in the way you present yourself. You feel really confident about your appearance. Now, there's nothing wrong with confidence, but when we start to only rely on ourselves, I think we can get into a little bit of trouble. And there's another whole side to this, actually. I don't know about you, but have you ever put on the perfect face? It kind of looks like that. It hurts. And after a while, your eyes start to turn purple. So that's when we know we're not perfect, but we're not going to let anybody else know. We're kind of like, "Hi, I got it. How are you? I'm great." Yeah. No, I never do that. Yes, I do. So we're kind of afraid that if anybody sees what's actually going on inside of us, they'll be terrified. And not only that, but it kind of damages the people around us too, and you kind of see that in the story. Peter says, "No, I'm not going to do it," and all the others vowed the same. So even though maybe they weren't feeling as confident because Peter said, "I got this," they're all like, "Oh yeah, we can do it too. We can be fine." So sometimes when we leave our mask of perfection, or we're pretending to be like we've got it all together, it lets the people around us maintain that mask as well. So Peter's pretty confident, but Jesus actually knows better. Jesus actually knows we're going to fail. He actually knows Peter's going to fail, and he's actually prepared for it. We're going to continue the story in Mark 14:66-72. The time has come, and the sheep, aka the disciples, are scattered. Jesus has been arrested and betrayed, and now they're on their way to the high priest's house where he's going to be questioned. And Peter, so far, he's doing pretty well. He's following along. And here we're outside the high priest's house. It says, "Meanwhile, Peter was in the courtyard below. One of the servant girls who worked for the high priest came by and noticed Peter warming himself at the fire. She looked closely at him and said, 'You are one of those with Jesus of Nazareth.' But Peter denied it. 'I don't know what you're talking about,' he said. And he went out into the entryway. Just then, a rooster crowed. That's strike one for Peter. When the servant girl saw him standing there, she began telling other people, 'This man is definitely one of them.' But Peter denied it again. Strike two. A little later, some of the other bystanders confronted Peter and said, 'You must be one of them because you're a Galilean.' And Peter swore, 'A curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man you're talking about.' In other words, I don't know the guy, okay?" At this point, this is Peter's third denial, and you kind of notice it's increasing in intensity. He's kind of like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Like, "No, really." "Okay, really, I swear I don't know him." And he's also kind of taking the responsibility of what he's saying onto himself. So Peter's denial is not accidental. It's purposeful and it's personal, which is kind of a big deal. And right after that, immediately, the rooster crowed a second time. Suddenly, Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." And he broke down and wept. He broke down and he wept. And it's not really any wonder that he did. His life and everything he's really ever known kind of comes unraveling around him, kind of like this soccer ball. Totally torn apart, destroyed. He's let go of everything he thinks he is, everything he believes, and definitely his future. He's absolutely let go of it. He's a failure. He's not good enough. He doesn't measure up. He's a coward. He's afraid. He's let his fear control him. He doesn't belong with Jesus. He doesn't deserve to be one of the disciples. And neither do we really. We all have moments in our lives when we're faced with our own weakness and failure. Maybe we fail a course at school, or maybe we give into gossip in order to be popular. Maybe we have been sideswept by divorce, or our kids aren't doing what we thought we raised them to do. In these moments, maybe we set out to prove our worth, and we've discovered that we actually can't. We've all been there, I think. Maybe we're still feeling the crush of that defeat today. Or maybe you kind of feel like you're right on the edge of it, and you're just barely holding it together. I know I can certainly relate to that feeling. This past couple months, or even this year at the gathering and in my own life, has been a year of great transition. And somewhere in the middle of it, I found myself saying to God, "You know what? I got this. Don't worry about me. I will just white knuckle it, and we'll just get through this, and it will be fine. I'll be just fine." And so I tried to do it all on my own. And maybe about a month ago, I realized I was barely holding it together. I was not having a fun time in life. Everything was kind of gray and kind of miserable. And one of the worst parts about it was I knew that God was right there. He was literally right there waiting for me to turn around and say, "Actually, I need you. Actually, help me." But once you've kind of said to God, "Hey, I've got this," it's really hard to turn around and say, "Actually, I was wrong." And another beautiful thing about it, he actually placed people around me, like Shelley and Kristen in the office, who would say, "Hey, what can I do? Can I take something off your plate? How can I help you?" And in those moments, it was so hard to let go of anything that I was trying to control and do on my own, to let others and let God care for me. But here's the thing about Jesus. He actually knew that was going to happen, and he was actually prepared for it. And these are 3 kind of things that I kind of learned through this whole process. The first is take courage. Yeah, that's cool. And I don't mean the kind of courage that it takes to like suck it up and do it better and do it by yourself. I'm talking about the kind of courage it takes to be vulnerable and say, I messed up, or I need help. I can't do this on my own. The kind of courage it takes to be honest. In Romans 12:3, it says, don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourself, measuring yourself by the faith God has given us. And also the last thing I wanted to say about having courage before we move on was in the Gospels, it's really clear, like, Jesus spends a lot of his time with people who are the outcasts and the sinners and the people who have failed. And I think that has a lot to do with they were actually honest. They actually just wore all that stuff on their sleeves. They weren't trying to be something that they weren't. And so Jesus could actually meet them there and come alongside them. Versus the Pharisees, who had pursued perfection, and it had actually separated them from everybody else. Their perfection had little to do with courage and actually had everything to do with self-preservation. And so, be honest about yourself and your weakness and your failure. Number 2 is have compassion. Be kind to yourself when you mess up and when you fail. I like to call myself a recovering self-bully because it is a bad habit of mine when I screw up to immediately beat myself up about it, not physically, but tell myself, you're not good enough, that was horrible, you're so stupid, how could you let that happen? And that is absolutely not what God would have me do. That's not what Jesus is all about. This is what God is teaching me. So now there is no condemnation for those who belong in Christ Jesus. None from Jesus, none from God, and none from myself. So I just want to encourage you, when you fail, which you will, be kind to yourself. And finally, find connection. And this is the interesting part for me. At this point, we've kind of realized, oh yeah, I'm not perfect. And also, nobody around you is either, actually. And we actually need each other. And it's because of that imperfection that it drives our connection. Could you imagine if I came here on a Sunday and tried to do Shayla's job, and my job, and Christian's job, and do an awesome dance like Yasmin? It just wouldn't fly. We need each other. That's why God calls the church a body. In 1 Corinthians 12:27, it says, all of you together are Christ's body, and each of you is a part of it. So I don't know about you, but I love a before and after picture. And we're going to continue the story because God doesn't leave us in our garbage once we've failed. He doesn't just say, okay, good, you clean that up and come on to me when you're finished. But he's in the business of redemption. And I had somebody send me these pictures this week, and I just think it's so cool that you can take like little pieces, and you don't even know what that is, and turn it into something absolutely functional and beautiful and like a piece of art. And I think when I get to heaven, my life is going to make a great before and after picture. I'm really looking forward to seeing it, actually. And I'm kind of hoping it looks like maybe it starts off like a piano, Rachel, wink, wink. So that's nice, but look what it can be. A purple sparkly piano. Okay, I just really like Kristen's piano. So I say all that to say the story is not finished. Peter's story is not finished. We're going to continue it in the book of John. But my story is not finished, and your story is not finished. So we're going to pick up in John, which is the neat thing about the Gospels is they're all kind of different perspectives on the same story. So where Mark leaves off, we can pick up in John. It's cool. Peter, after he failed, I'm imagining he didn't really know what to do. He's given up on everything that he knew. So what does he do? He goes back to what he knows. When Jesus found Peter at the very beginning, Peter was fishing. And Jesus said, I'll make you a fisher of men. Come be my disciple. And now Peter is gone from being a fisher of men back to being a fisher of fish. And this is where Jesus finds him. I don't know about you, but I like to think, what happens? Like, where do I go when I fail? Where do we go when we fail? I think very often it's back to what we know. Maybe back to what God has called us out of. Maybe what God has already delivered us from. When we fail, we go back to that because that's what I know. It's not hard. But this is actually where Jesus meets Peter. And they eat, and then this is what kind of happens. After breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," Peter replied, "you know that I love you." Ouch. Ouch. Like, Peter's just denied Jesus. He's just said, "I don't know you." And now Jesus is asking him, "Do you love me?" He's asking for a confession of love from Peter, from this guy that just denied him. I think that's got to hurt a little bit. That's got to drive a little bit at that part of your heart that's maybe a little bit sore. "Feed my lambs," Jesus told him. Jesus repeated the same question. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said, "you know I love you." "Then take care of my sheep," Jesus said. A third time he asked him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt that Jesus had asked the question the third time, and he said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." "Lord, you know everything. You know how imperfect I am. You know I've not done all that I promised I would, yet you know my heart. You know that I love you." Even after we deny Jesus and we fail to trust him, he knows that our heart is to love him because he loves us. So we want to love him. Jesus is not asking these questions 3 times because he's confused. He's asking them to kind of balance and mirror the 3 denials that Peter has given to Jesus. Now Jesus is asking him 3 times, "Do you love me?" He's asking to balance it out, to restore him, really. It's really neat. And finally, Jesus says, "Then feed my sheep," which is a little bit cryptic. You're kind of like, what? But the sheep and the lambs are a picture of the people of God. And at this point, the disciples have been scattered. They were terrified when Jesus was put to death, and so they actually need to be cared for. And Jesus is bringing Peter back to his purpose in the family of God. He's drawing him out of himself. It's not about what Peter can promise on his own. His purpose in the family of God is still secure, but it's not about him. It's about others. Loving Jesus is not about what you can promise, what you can do on your own. It's about taking care of others through the strength that God gives you. And this kind of relates also to the courage, compassion, and connection that we're going to learn to give to ourselves when we fail. Because when we're taking care of others, we need to have courage, not to have them rely on us, but to be able to turn them to Jesus. And we need to have compassion, which means we're all on level ground. We're not coming from the place of superiority where we're like, "I got everything together. I'm going to fix you too." But compassion is the place that puts us all on the same level, where we can help each other out. And connection is what I've talked about. We need each other. We need God. If we were perfect, we wouldn't need his grace. And we wouldn't need each other. So the last little bit of this passage says, "I tell you the truth. When you were young, you were able to do as you liked. You dressed yourself and you went wherever you wanted to go. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and others will dress you and take you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to let him know by what kind of death he would glorify God. Then Jesus told him, "Follow me." So Jesus ends this passage like he kind of ended the first one, telling Peter, "I know what's ahead of you." Jesus is going to take this guy that denied him 3 times and radically transform him into someone who's willing to die for him. And I think that's the journey that we're all on together. As we follow Jesus, he's going to be transforming us from somebody who doesn't trust him, who messes up all the time, a whole lifetime to work on us to this place where, we trust him fully. And yeah, it will take a lifetime. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a big life's goal kind of thing. And finally, Jesus says, follow me. That's the same call that Jesus gave Peter at the beginning. Back in the day, in Jesus' time, there were tons of rabbis who would have lots of students coming and asking them, hey, can I follow you? Can I follow you? And it was a rabbi's job to pick the students who he thought had the potential and the drive and the ability to actually become like him, not just memorize what he had to say, but actually become like the teacher. And in Peter's case, Jesus has gone out of his way and he's called him. He said, come, follow me. And here he's reminding him of that call. He's saying to him, Peter, I believe in you. You have the potential. You have what it takes. I saw it in you and we're going to make this happen. You will become like me. And that's what Jesus says to us when he calls us to follow him. He's saying, I picked you. I believe in you. You have what it takes when you're with me. You will be like me. And following Jesus and loving him is all about loving others. It's all about seeing who's around you and using that strength and that confidence that only comes from God to instill in other people. Now, I think that's a great picture of restoration. So the big idea for today is Jesus knows our imperfections. He finds us in them and he uses us in them. So that's what I want you to remember. And yeah, I guess I'll pray. God, thank you so much for today and all the little things you did to bring us here this morning. Thank you that you made us and that you know us. You know our imperfections and our weakness, and you're actually prepared for them. You actually have a reason and a purpose for them. I pray today that you would be with us and you would just help us to embrace those things and be honest about them so that we would be able to help other people. We love you, Jesus. Amen. And now it's my favorite time. I actually didn't think about Q&A until this morning. So these answers are going to be awesome.
So she's pretty excited about it.
So excited.
She told me 5 questions, right? You wanted 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hit me.
Questions for Annika.
So you did a really awesome job.
Oh, thanks, Rebecca.
And I thank you for being so open and vulnerable. Now, can you name 5 other passages in the Bible where Jesus calls someone to follow him?
5? You're so good. Good one. Okay.
Actually, 7 is the biblical number.
7 is the biblical number. If I could name all the disciples, that's what I would say. Because I'm pretty sure that's what he said to them. And maybe Paul too. Yeah.
So any actual questions?
Well, nice job,
Thanks,
Annika.
Steve.
Where are you going from here? I'll go 100 miles to hear you again. What are you doing next? Are you
Nothing.
nothing?
No. This was great.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
So I noticed that Peter didn't say I'm sorry
Yeah.
to Jesus. So could you maybe explain why? And
That's good.
because I know that I always feel like I always say I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from what I from what you said, I think that it was assumed. Maybe can you explain it a little?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think the biggest thing that kind of happened from there was that Peter changed his direction. He didn't keep fishing. He actually started walking on the path that Jesus had called him to. And that's what really saying sorry to God actually looks like, is actually turning kind of with Jesus from what you're doing and following what he's asking you to do. So that was kind of his action of saying sorry, which is better than just saying sorry and not actually changing. Good question.
All right, last call. Now's your chance.
I don't want to put you on the spot with
It's
Bible
cool.
trivia, but I can't recall if Peter's, I think it's interesting that link you made between, him denying him 3 times and Jesus giving him 3 times to restore that confidence in him, and your comparison of like the before and after of who he turns Peter into. And I can't recall if Peter's death and manner of death is mentioned in Bible or if that's apocrypha that we know of from other sources.
I don't think I don't know.
It's on the Bible. It's
Hey, Jeff,
okay.
you know that one? Is that in the Bible? Okay, thanks. Thanks, so that's good.
All right, well, I think Annika did a great job, so no more questions. Thank you, Annika.
Thank you. Yeah.